All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the REDX podcast. We're so glad you're here. We are always trying to bring the best experts in the field right here to the podcast to give you the best information to grow your business. And this week we have the expert, Dan Elzer. He just told me, Dan, I'll let you tell more about yourself, but he just celebrated his 35th year in the business on St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
St.
Robert,
Patrick's Day.
thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be back on the broadcast. And one of your teammates sent me this jersey or this shirt last time, and because I'm usually in a suit or at least a jacket, I said I'm gonna wear my REDX shirt this time. So
I love it. Yeah, you can call it a jersey. You're on our team. It's a jersey. Yeah, that's great. No, looking good. Thanks for representing today. Hey guys, just a few housekeeping items before we get started and hear more from Dan. But as always, this is a participatory event. So if you have questions or comments, throw them on wherever you're watching us, on Facebook, on YouTube, at redx.com/podcast. And if you have direct questions, we'll try to get to them on the show. And we want to hear from you. In fact, you can start off by just telling us where you're joining us from and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. And then make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast newsletter or podcast announcements at redx.com/podcast. So you always know about our upcoming shows. But you don't need to know about our upcoming ones right now because you're here listening to Dan, the expert. Dan, for those that don't know you, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll start talking everything going on in the real estate world.
Certainly. As you said, it's 35th year. I got into business in 1987. And those people out there that know me, I came out of law enforcement, which was kind of a unique angle, but that plays sometimes whenever I'm in this business or training. Built a company. I started a company a year later, which was sounds miraculous, but I practically was a failure at the beginning of that. Figured it out. I ended up building a very successful company. Grew it quite large. We sold, and coming out of selling it, I have been consulting, doing executive coaching in the real estate industry, speaking, keynoting, doing all that fun stuff. I do on-site workshops for companies. I've got clients all the way over to Australia and New Zealand. So I've been a blessed guy. I've got to do a whole bunch of really fun stuff, but 35 years of watching the ups and downs of real estate.
Well, we are excited to learn from all of that experience. Now, pre-show, we were talking, and I want to get some advice for some new agents out there. But Dan, tell us where you started, because I love that story, and just thinking of pulling expireds and FSBOs out and combing through the MLS and county records. That's where you started, and so maybe I want to hear a little bit more about that, and then we'll talk about, hey, it's 2022. So what can we tell new agents to do to get a good start?
Certainly. Well, I'm always straight with people. You hear from these international speakers that talk about how great their life was, and you went from 0 to 100 in a day. And I wasn't that guy. I got into the business the end of my first year. I barely did any transactions. I had written a business plan to open a company. It's the only reason why I was able to open the company, because other people's money, my investors. I opened the company. I'm not doing well there. They threatened to fire me. So literally, I went through some really, really stressful beginnings in the first 18 months. And it was at that point I stopped and said, obviously trying to do it my way is not working. It's time to learn. So I really immersed myself in professional selling skills, not just the training within real estate, but all professional selling. I became a better leader. I learned how to be a good leader, and I turned my company around. And to what we were talking about, I've been a fan. I've been with you guys, supporting you for 15 plus years, probably. I'm not even sure how long, but it made me think back to when we really got things going as a leader in my company, and we were a top listing company. We would spend 2-3 hours every morning going through the expired list, searching reverse directories. There was no internet easy way of doing things. And we'd spend hours to come up with 3 or 4. Each agent would get 3 or 4 numbers that they could contact as a potential expired, and that was our sweet spot. And we would do that, but we'd get those 2-3 contacts, end up 1 or 2 appointments, and go get a listing. And you guys come out, and I get very excited when I talk to especially newer agents and go, you don't realize how how lucky you are. If you look at the time value of money, what you would charge me if I was doing it today, what you would charge me for me to wake up and have that data sitting there instead of me spend 3 hours, I'd have given my left arm for it back then. So big change in the opportunity for us to go out there and really dominate, if you will, on the listing side of the business.
Yeah, I really like that story. I'm glad. Thanks for sharing it with the audience too, because I thought it was great to hear, and just the idea of where we're at now. So now it's 2022, and really, I mean, the NAR came out at the end of the year and said that there was 20% of the agents in the field were new agents that year.
Yep.
And if you go back to COVID time in 2020 as well, we're looking at 30-40% of agents out there are on this newer end. And what we know from our stats, probably a lot of them feeling like you did at the end of your first year, that it didn't go as well as they had hoped in this market and what's going on. So let's just start there. We've got new agents right now, a lot of them. Let's just start with some basic foundational advice that you'd give as they are struggling to get going.
Well, the first thing I want to talk about, Robert, is the mindset. I've said it in past podcasts, so you can go back and listen to those. But I'm from the camp that this inventory, we have no inventory. I keep telling people it's a myth. This is an inventory myth. And I was honored to be on a webinar with some of the National Association of Realtors economic people. Gay, she's the number 2 economist for them. And the company that had me on knew that I shoot straight. I'll ask questions and I'm not afraid to mix it up a little bit. So before we went on, Gay and I had a little conversation, and she was ready for it. But she explained to everybody that we did 6.5 million transactions through the multiple list. These are properties that have been listed and sold in 2021. She said there's 2.1 months of inventory average in the marketplace coming out of 2021. And she said, this is a big challenge for us, not having inventory. And when she was all done, I asked her, I said, when was the last time we sold 6.5 million homes? Yeah. She said, only one other time, and that was the 06, 07 era before the crash. And I said, well, if there's 2 months of inventory, just doing quick math, it's about 500,000 homes a month. So we have about 7.2 million homes we listed in 2021. She said, correct. I said, when's the last time we listed 7 million homes? She paused. She said, Dan, that's a good point. And I simply say this to everybody out there. We can't have these record-breaking sales without record-breaking inventory. So the first thing I would say with a new agent is ignore the noise about no inventory and understand it's a market of demand where inventory won't stay on the shelf. But it isn't there's no inventory. And what has happened in our industry is because of that no inventory mindset, and also because just simply some companies haven't had as strong of a position, putting a stake in the ground for new people, that they come in with what I consider the HGTV mindset, that I'm just going to show people some houses they're going to buy and it's going to be great. And when 70 to 80% of the agents are trying to sell half of a transaction, and only 20-25% are trying to do the other half of the transaction, you have no competition really on the list side, and you have everybody out there trying to buy a lead or find a lead to go sell in a high demand market. That's where the burnout's happening. That's why these people aren't making the money they want, because if there's 8 people to 1 transaction on the buy side, you're going to win on average 1 in 8 times. That's if it's averaged. Yeah. If there's 1 or 2 people on the list side, they're hitting every other time. So we got to understand the mindset of the business of real estate and not buy into the myth. That would be my first thing.
You have people on Facebook, they're applauding, they're cheering, they say, hey, someone said that, yeah, there you go, some applause. Someone's saying the truth out there, because there is a lot of competition, there is a lot of demand, but there's also a lot of homes for sale. And there's a lot of inventory, is what I should say.
It just turns so quick. It's like the toilet paper shortage, They didn't stop making toilet paper. We just bought all of it. It's the same thing. If you think of it, you want a high demand marketplace because that keeps us in business. But understand your marketplace and know that there is more listings coming on the market than ever before. It's just they turn so quick. So don't turn a blind eye to them. Understand the balance of your business so you can participate in the
Mm-hmm.
in the healthier side of the market, which is that list side as well as buy side.
Yeah, so that's perfect. So we've got these new guys and gals, and they're in the market, and they're thinking low inventory. Do I have to do something different? And you're saying, hey, first of all, don't buy the myth.
Right.
So now you get their mindset changed on what's going on in the marketplace. Now what? What's going to be the next thing that helps these guys out?
Go. And that comes back to stats too. Any other industry goes with big data. You hear about big data all the time. I've got a son who's a junior exec at Walt Disney World. We sit down and talk all the time. Walt Disney World knows, when you take a nap, when you go to the bathroom, when you eat, they know everything about you to create an experience that is amazing. We have the National Association of Realtors interviews a couple 100,000 buyers and sellers every year. So when you really take the time to understand the big data, the last, buyer seller survey had in it that 73% of listings that sold in these hot markets found their agent through their sphere of influence. So if you really start to look at that, it starts to make sense why it's so hard to do this job. If I'm not working a sphere, if I haven't built a sphere, if I don't understand the skill sets of a sphere, 73% of the listings that sold are no longer in my wheelhouse. So now people go, well, if that's only 27% left, well, that's what REDX is for. I'm going to go get the ones that are available through other manner, but I got to work my sphere to make sure I get into that pie of business as well. When I remove myself from both, I have a slim or nil chance of getting a listing unless it's my mom. I got to make sure that I start doing activities, and the big data tells me the best return on my time is to build and maintain a sphere of influence. And just if I can, just for everybody out there, I kind of look at it differently than people. When we break down a sphere, it's friends, family, acquaintances, and past customers. Now, everyone always says the best client is a past customer. I totally agree with that, but sometimes we hug and hold them when we sell them, and we kind of forget them when the deal's done. That's kind of part of what's wrong with us.
Yeah.
So I always say, truly, your best sphere person is an acquaintance, because an acquaintance knows you as a professional, not as a friend. So, going back to what we were laughing about before we went online, I did undercover work.
Yeah.
When I first went into real estate, I go to a friend and say, let me sell your house. They viewed me from what I did before. You were a cop and worked undercover. Why would I have you sell my house? So they have a predisposed feeling about me. I run into someone in the street. I'm dressed properly. I speak properly. We engage about real estate. I take them into my sphere. The only thing that person knows was that engagement. They'll go refer me faster than a friend. They will turn and tell their neighbor about me faster than my friend. So I always say the best sphere in the world is acquaintances that don't really get to know you. That's the best.
Or that know you professionally, right? That know that side.
They know you personally. They don't know your personal life. They just know.
That's right. So a new agent comes out and they hear this. So grow my sphere or work my sphere. But I think that's the problem they run into is they say, well, I checked with my mom and my grandma, and now what? And because their sphere, in that business world, it starts small. So what advice do you have to help them start growing that sphere?
The sphere, the first thing that I did in my company with new people, and this is after I set the mindset that they have to be balanced. I think that it's improper. This is just Dan Elzer, to have an agent go sit in an open house, try to get a buyer when they're brand new, because you got to get going. The buyer side is so clogged that the odds are you don't have the skill set to win in this market. So you're going to burn out and go broke. It's easier to teach you how to go in and earn a listing, because that's not a whole lot of competition, than it is to teach you how to get around all of the things happening on the buyer side right now, and making sure that you vetted the buyer you're with, so they're not only qualified, but they're willing to compete. They're willing to go above and beyond. So way too many new agents get stuck lacking the skill on the buyer side right now, and it's very, very harmful to them. Now, on the list side, I can teach anyone how to do that. So when it comes to sphere, first thing I find that new people do is they don't consider past experiences sphere for real estate. I'm just going to give you a couple simple examples.
Yeah.
I had a woman who cut hair. She was a hairdresser. She came to me and she goes, Dan, I just got real estate. I've never sold really before. I said, what did you do before? She goes, I was a hairdresser. I said, how many clients did you have? I forget how many. Now, I grew up with 6 sisters. I looked at her and I said, if a woman lets you cut her hair, she'll let you sell their house. And I said, they should be in your sphere. And she looked at me and I understood that because I hesitated to bring my friends into my sphere. I said, past friends and past customers need to be in your sphere, even though you've changed careers. Your professionalism from your prior career will carry over into the professionalism of your new career. So that's the first thing. Make sure you don't count out anybody. Then the second thing is, I call it the 3-foot rule. I can take an hour a day to go out, now that COVID's settling, to go out in the marketplace wearing career apparel, wearing something that says I'm a real estate professional. And when I run into people, I've got an 80% chance that they'll look at it and go, you're in real estate, how's the business? So if you don't mind, I'll do a little talk track right now.
Yeah.
Every time somebody does that to you, how's the business? Smile, or you're in real estate, go, yes, I am. Well, how's the business? And say, you know what? It's amazing right now. We are selling so much property right now because the high demand. We only have one problem. They'll go, what's that? We just don't have enough houses for the people that want to live in our community. Pause a second and then go, you know what? Maybe you can help me. Who do you know that's thinking of selling? Now, 8 out of 10 times they'll go, I don't really know anybody. Continue the conversation. And then to bring them into your sphere, you can't sound like you're going to spam them or, send them a ton of stuff. So I always came up with this response. I'd go, Robert, it was great talking to you. I got a group of some friends. So it sounds small. It sounds finite. I got a group of some friends that I send some real estate stuff out to occasionally. Would you be interested in getting that? You say yes. I go, great. How would you like to receive it? Should I mail it to you or email it? You give me contact information. Boom. You're now in my sphere. All I have to do now, and the stats are, I need to talk to you once a quarter. So I want your phone number. So 4 times a year, I need to chat with you. And once a month, you need to receive something from me. And there's places like Personal Marketing Company and stuff that you can go pay for them to send something of real estate every month. The return on that is 6 to 9 transactions per 100 people. So if I just go out there and say, I want to meet 10 people a day. So 5 days a week, I'm going to meet 10 people a day. That's 50 people. 300, we call it Core 300 in our SWAT program that I'll share with you. 300 would be 18 to 27 referred transactions a year if you work your sphere. That puts you in the top 10% of real estate agents. So, so I start by, who do I know? Get them in there. And then how can I just go out there? If you get within 3 feet of me, I got to engage you. You'll see my name badge. I'm going to bring you over. If I do that in the first 3 months of my business, I promise you'll be one of the busiest agents in the business.
I like that. And I like the script because a lot of it was about people approaching you because you put yourself in a position that they are curious about what you do and what's going on in the market. And when you have the answers to the questions they have, then even though they're an acquaintance or someone you're meeting right then, you are the expert for them and ready to deliver more information as well. So I would really like that.
Before we go to the next one, I want to make sure my experienced agents out there understand this as well. We've just come through COVID. We've been in an urgent market thanks to the federal government throwing liquidity at us. And that urgency has taken us away from managing our sphere right. All the experienced agents that I know or I talk to or I run into when I'm on the road, I ask them, I said, when's the last time you went and took 20 minutes, 30 minutes and walked through a place of public to find some strangers? And they go, I've stopped doing that. And I go, that's why your business is suffering. So I don't care if you're new or experienced. Take purposeful time to go immerse yourself in the areas that you want to dominate. If you want to be a luxury person, you got to go where the luxury people are. If you want to be in a certain subdivision, you want to go where those people hang out and find ways, 3-foot rule, to always add those people into your business. So it's not just a new agent thing. It's an any agent thing that should be occurring.
Yes, I think you just nailed what everyone is talking about and knows, but they're maybe not actively doing it. And that is right now with the market as is, it does feel like I'm just going to be listing and selling houses forever because there's what did you say, 7 million homes listed last year. And so I can be an agent to just grab a couple of those and keep growing my business. Well, the market's not always going to be that way. And when the market changes, because it will, and that's what I want to talk to you about next, you need to set up that success now. Because if your habits now are based off of the market now, where all of these listings, I mean, listings you still got to earn, but as far as like houses that you can actually go after and try to earn that listing is at an all-time high. When that starts slowing down, if you haven't developed the right habits, then you're going to have to start from ground zero again. So keep doing it now. Right. Keep adding to this fear now, so that you're set up 6 months, a year from now. But that's where I want to go next, because that is like your expertise here, Dan, is helping us out, understanding what's going on in the market. I think there's some nerves. We know interest rates and just other uncertainties in the market. So maybe share with all of us, new, experienced people thinking about it, what can you tell us about the market and what we can be expecting?
Yes, Robert. Again, I'm an economics geek, those of you who know me. So the first thing I would say is, if I could give you advice on what your morning routine should be, it would be to get up, spend 30 minutes to an hour when you're having your breakfast or whatever, read industry news, Inman, Res, Media, all those people. But take yourself outside of the industry. Go to CNBC or Fox Business or Bloomberg or whatever, and look at real estate related articles from Wall Street's perspective. That will give you a good piece of information. But then the last thing I do is I read about the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve, when they talk about interest rates, just for people out there that don't know, the interest rate that they change all the time is called the interbank rate. So it's for short-term borrowing of money between a bank and the Federal Reserve. So it was at zero for a long time. They just bumped it a quarter point. Well, what that does is make borrowing money in short-term credit card, personal loans, car, boat, those go up immediately. The other thing that they're involved in is stimulus. So they're buying the 10-year Treasury, the US Treasury. That's what you should watch for interest rates. You can go and Google 10-year US Treasury versus 30-year mortgage, and you will see 20, 30-year charts that every time the 10-year moved, the next day the 30-year moved. So if you want to know where the rates are going, watch the 10-year bond. Well, the federal government all through COVID bought the 10-year bond, which forced it to its lowest interest rate. The more it's purchased, the lower the rate goes. End of March, they're no longer buying the bonds. So they've been backing off buying the bonds since January. So January started to creep up, February creeped up, now March it's really happening. That's because the government's gotten out of buying the bonds. So it's relying on the open market. They can't spend the money like the government can. The other thing they did was they were buying packaged securities. They were buying mortgage-backed securities to keep liquidity flowing. So every time we were selling these houses and prices were going up and jumbo mortgages were going, there was always cash to replace the latest sale. Well, with the federal government getting out of buying mortgage-backed securities, that's going to tighten the money supply. So anytime there's less of something, it costs more to do it. Not buying the bonds is going to push the rates up. So when you have a more expensive cost of borrowing and a higher interest rate, that's what we're experiencing right now. So if I can, Robert, I just want to make sure you understand what happens. If you don't have skills to properly vet buyers, here's what can happen to you. You get a buyer that the rates have now moved over 4. The houses they've been looking at, they can't afford. Most people buy at the top of their qualification. That 1 point move could have been $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in value. Throw on top of it the appreciation of a house these days. They could be $100,000 move, and they can't afford that anymore. The problem is, if you don't know that, they'll keep looking at what they can't afford and you make no money. The second bad thing that will happen is they know it's out of their price point, and you tell them, we can't look in the estates anymore. Robert, I got to take you over to the manors because the rates have moved and you can't afford it. That's an emotional problem. People can't go from looking at one type of house to another overnight. So they'll ask you as a buyer agent, let's keep looking. Maybe we'll find a seller in trouble. Like I said, I got 35 years of this, guys. A strong buyer agent goes, see ya, I got to move on if you can't buy in the manors. If we don't have the skills, you might end up thinking you'll find that. in a strong market like this, there's not sellers that are giving houses away. And then the worst one is, let's keep looking, maybe they'll come back down. Any of those things happening to someone on the buyer side could cost you your career. You have a listing and you're balanced, you've got listings and buyers, you can cherry pick the buyers and the listings are going to sell. So just keep in mind that the market in a transitional state is going to change the manner in which buyers operate and act, and it's also going to change whether or not that buyer can buy what they've been loving and looking at for the last weeks or months.
Yeah, and everyone again agreeing with you. We got Larry. Bam, Dan is exactly correct about the 10-year Treasury. So people are listening, and this is really important, and it does. It's something that if you're in real estate, you need to know these things, and you need to know them on a daily basis. So maybe Dan, we're getting a little close on time, but I'd love to hear before we wrap up and talk about where people can find out more information about you. What's maybe a habit or just something a real estate agent should be doing right now, so as the market starts to shift and change, they can continue to be successful?
Well, let me give you 3 points, okay? Point number 1, new or experienced, wake up purposefully, meaning don't just react. Don't just do what people tell you. I talk about be the doctor, the client's the patient. So you have to decide, I've got to put 10, 15% of my time into my sphere and into using REDX to go out and look for that opportunity to list a home. So that's step 1. I've got to be in control. Step 2, understand that, especially with the transitional market, the competition is going to get fierce. So you have to avoid being what I call being commoditized. If you go out and talk like, look like, and walk like everyone else, the competition is going to continue to cut commissions and come at you in many different ways. If you don't differentiate, you'll look like them and the consumer will expect you to act like them. That's being commoditized. So make sure you understand the winning differences of your company, your brand, so you come to the table with a differentiation that makes you better. And then the third thing is my quote is, habits are stronger than knowledge. Through these last 2 years, we have gained some bad habits. And even though you can answer the questions probably and get them right, if I asked you about skills and strategies, you'll turn around and do the exact opposite because your habit is stronger than your knowledge. So great people in any industry, when it's transitioning, know how to review themselves, their skills, and make sure that their knowledge is equal to their activity. And that's why I wrote, and every time I'm on the podcast, those of you who've been there, I talk about it. That's why I put together the Real Estate SWAT School program, that 8-week program. Because if you really want 8 weeks of drilling on how to get out there and balance your business and get inventory and be the doctor, that's why I wrote that program. And unlike my peers out there, I'm not charging you $800-900 for it. I'm trying to make it so affordable, it's a no-brainer. So if you're interested, check it out. It's $297 for, I think, 8 weeks of the best training for you.
And we have it on the screen, but for those listening, how do people find that?
It's RE-SWAT. It's SWAT. So reswatschool.com. And there's a little intro in there. There's plenty of reviews. You can read what people say about it, but it will give you 8 weeks of purposeful what to do, how to do it, and the skills behind it to start to break those bad habits and get you into a balanced approach to your business.
I love it. So be purposeful. And what was your second point now?
So first was be purposeful. Second is don't be commoditized.
Don't be commoditized. Be
able to differentiate. Don't walk through the door and be Dan, real estate agent. Walk through the door and discover needs and bring solutions that include your company, your brand, if you have one, any affiliations that you have, so you can differentiate. And then the third is check your skills. You probably are operating in a habit that might be detrimental and you don't know it.
I love that one. Say the saying, and habits outweigh knowledge.
Habits are stronger than our knowledge.
Are stronger than our knowledge. And I think that's super true. And we all know, when you said we've gotten into some bad habits, we all did over the last couple of years, not whether it's in our professions or not, everything changed and we developed different habits. And if we want to be successful in the future, we know we need to have the right habits. Dan, thanks for coming and sharing all of this with us.
Yes.
helping out the agents out there that are just getting started, and the experienced agents as well that need the reminder to have those habits and be able to know what's going on in the market and serve the people the right way. Thanks for being here on the show. Any last words of advice or anything you want to say before we close today?
I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. Like I said, it's an honor to get to be a part of REDX. And for everyone out there, guys, don't panic. This is our market. Just learn how to work that market, man. It's going to be great.
All right, Dan, thanks again for being here. Everyone who's listening wants to hear more from Dan and hear about his SWAT school, reswatschool.com. You can find out more there. If you're new to the podcast, catch up on old episodes at redx.com/podcast. If we didn't answer your question today or you want to talk more, you can visit us online on Facebook. We have the Lead Gen Conversation group where we're talking all about lead generation in today's market. And join us next week. We'll be here same time, same place, or wherever you listen to and enjoy your favorite podcasts. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Take care, guys.